My name is Ayush, and I graduated in 2020 from BIT Mesra. I belong from this city named Jamshedpur, and ever since I graduated from BIT Mesra, I worked with companies such as An Academy, Urban Company, and Libel as a product manager. So I worked around 3 to 4 years in the product and the strategy domain. And to be very honest, I didn't have plans to pursue an MBA. And a lot of my friends who were there with me in my UG college, they wanted to pursue MBA because their seniors were pursuing MBA. So that's kind of vicious cycle that we got inside without having any clue that why do we even want to do an MBA. But right after working with companies such as Urban Company and An Academy, while trying to understand complex problems, trying to define strategies, I understood that the kind of leaders that I worked with, I was very fortunate that I got to work with leaders such as people from IIMs, very esteemed college from India and outside as well. So the kind of clarity and the structured problem solving that they bring to the table is what really attracted me. And I thought that, okay, this is something that even I want to do in my longer run career. So I ended up thinking that, okay, MBA is something that even I would want to do. Apart from the monetary benefits that it will provide to you in the longer run, I think the network and the structured problem solving and the kind of person that will become is something that even I am wanting to become. And I'm not the right person to comment on that right now, but I think that it turns out to be well. So I think, yeah, that's why MBA. And right after starting with my career, it was very difficult for me to parallelly balance between the job that I was working for and also wanting to pursue an MBA because it's a whole new different journey. And since all of you are students yourself would realize that how hectic it would get at times, for, especially for the students who are working in the full-time jobs as well. Because there are certain colleges, a lot of you would want to stay in India, a lot of would want to go outside. So there are certain colleges which would demand certain kinds of expertise, the kind of knowledge and the kind of problem solving that you bring to the table. So that is when you have to crack a particular exam. That particular exam will define that whether you are a particular fit or a perfect fit for a particular college or not. So I gave CAT, I gave GMAT, and I realized that I sucked. So I understood that, okay, this is not something that I would be able to do, but I didn't give up. So I tried to understand that where exactly that I exactly lie, what is the RCA that I could do out of here, and how do I actually go about it? Because earlier when I started, I didn't have any structure in my mind. I was basically all over the place. I just wanted to crack the exam without having a clear mindset, a roadmap as to how should I go about it. So that's when I tried to frame a proper roadmap and a proper strategy for the entire year. So I knew that maybe my quant is weak, but I knew that my verbal section is quite good. So that's when I emphasized on focusing more on the quant side because I knew that I'm not saying that verbal is good. I'm saying that verbal is very subjective at times. And irrespective of how good or how much you read, you would never know that how the verbal paper will go for you. Since that the kind of continuous reading you have to imbibe in yourself because verbal can't be inculcated in like 2 to 3 months. You have to keep on practicing verbal. So that's when I shifted my focus in the quant and in the qualitative section where I tried to work on areas such as my AWA and the quantitative side. And over the span of years exactly, I would say that 6 to 7 months where I rigorously practiced, where I came back from work, I tried to squeeze out some time for myself, try to read for the CAT preparation. I applied for ZAT as well and I applied to GMAT as well. So a couple of exams turned out to be in my favor, and I think that the ISB turned out as a college which I even wanted to go. It was my first preference as well, and even though I got a lot of shortlists, but I ended up going to ISB. So my strategy involved that I read a lot. Even our professors here at college, they emphasize a lot on reading. So you have to make sure that every day, 10 to 15 minutes, you read anything, be it newspaper, be it magazine, be it in shorts, read an article. I think the kind of practice that reading brings to you, I think it's beyond explanation, and there's no substitution to reading. I think you have to read a lot in order to understand, because reading is also related with a lot of comprehension, how quickly you are able to grasp things, how quickly you are able to decipher and bring on facts out of reading. I think that is also very important. So these were my couple of strategies as to how should I go about quant particularly and verbal. Verbal would need a lot of practice because there can be skeptical times when you don't know that how whether the answer that you have committed is right or wrong. So it has to be very generic that way, and especially for the students who are preparing for GMAT. So GMAT is a very adaptive sort of paper, as you guys must already be knowing that. Uh, the kind of preparation that you do and the kind of preparation that reads in the examination is absolutely different. You can be a very top-notch student, but let's say on the day of examination, if one of the questions turn out to be wrong, you can see that the level of questions, the difficulty of the questions are decreasing. So that's when you end up panicking. That's when you realize that, okay, the previous question would have been wrong. So the kind of composure that you have to maintain while ensuring that the entire sections, because there are sectional cutoffs, and you have to ensure that your AWA session or your integrative reasoning or your quant or your verbal, this has to be top notch. So you have to ensure that you give a lot of mocks, and you have to understand that what is the kind of composure you have to maintain, what is the kind of shortcuts that you have to understand, and how do you go about it. So I think this is the generic process that I adopted particularly for my exams. And to be very honest, I focused more towards GMAT because I thought that my profile was more relevant in terms of ISB, because ISB looks into a 360 profile where you should be good at your diversity. You should be able to bring out some extracurricular activities on the table. You should be able to bring something unique on the table that makes the cohort entirely very, very, very diversity and very immersive. So you have to ensure that these are the things that you do. And for CAT, I think you have to be very much conceptually driven, because the difficulty and the kind of competition that we are getting for these MBA colleges for CAT, ZAT, GMAT, I think it's increasing. So the competition is tight, and you guys yourself are quite genius. So I think you have to ensure that you read a lot, you practice a lot, and you give a lot of mocks. I think these are the three mantras that you have to revolve, and you have to squeeze some time for yourself. Be it at night. I was a late night person, so I ended up squeezing some time, maybe an hour or 2 hours, sometime around the day or in the midnight, so that I could practice some questions, so that I could resolve some of the concepts for me, which especially in the areas where I was facing a lot of difficulties. So yeah, that was my strategy. And let me know if you guys have any questions, anything regarding GMAT or college or the interview process, or basically the MBA process.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Ayush. So the Q&A session starts, and you guys can raise your hand and ask your questions. Before that, we have one question in the chat box from Kanishka. So she's asking, how did you prepare for the ISB interview?
Got it. I think ISB interview is very coercive, because when I was preparing, I first of all, you have to prepare for the essays. You'll be getting couple of essays in your application process. Now that essay should reflect the entire personality of who you are as a person. What are the kind of mistakes, the failures, the kind of achievements that you have gotten, and whether these achievements or these learnings have made you a person that you are claiming that you are, right? So the process starts with the essay, where you have to be very brutally honest, but also have to ensure that your essay is so solid within 400 words that I'm able to make a portrayal of you as a person. I don't know who you are, but by reading your essay, I should be able to figure out that, okay, this person is quite great for my cohort, or this person should get an opportunity to be interviewed. So first of all, your essay should be very good, very honest, and you can literally write about anything and everything if you feel that this particular instance or this particular thing has made you a better person. So that is one level of hurdle that you have to pass through. Once you go through the essays, if your essay is selected, because your essays would be vetted by the ISB ASA team and we students. So when I'll read your essay, I have to think, or I have to tally your essay with the level of the essay that I myself have written, right? So I have to ensure that whether your essays are good or not, and whether you have really achieved or tried to portray a real self of yourself. Once you get a shortlist, then that's an absolutely different process, where you have to prepare for around 100 150 universal questions. Since I was the product manager, so I was asked this question. So there were three people on the panel. So one were the professor from the ISB team, one was a product manager from Microsoft, one was a PM at Amazon, and one was a PM at Walmart. So these three were the product managers, and they literally screwed me. They asked me questions. One of the questions that I remember, that they asked me to build, how would you build Spotify for blind people? So that was the question that I received. So they would check that how impulsive you are, how quick you are with your decision making, and how critically you can think under pressurized situations. I think that's how you need to go about your preparation, and your entire interview would be revolving around your application, the kind of essays that you have written. You would be I spent good amount of time in my startup which failed. So they asked me that why did it fail? What are the learnings that you bring out of your startup? How would you apply those learnings and come up with something new? What are the things that you would want to do in ISB? What is something that you would want to do post ISB, 5 years after ISB? So these were the kind of questions that were thrown at me back and again. So one was answering, one was questioning, and there was a cross question from someone else. So you have to tackle these questions very firmly and smartly, without ensuring that you are just blabbering, and also ensuring that you're very composed and trying to be as humble as possible. I hope that answers. Hello.
Hello. Yes, Ayush. How do you handle this why MBA question? This question is, I think, most primary one. So why MBA?
So why MBA? You have to have your own answer. To be very honest, I wanted to do an MBA. I spoke in my introduction as well. When I was working with people at urban company, fortunately, my managers were from esteemed colleges, and couple of them happened to be from ISB only. So the kind of problems that I delved into, the kind of situations that I was into, where I was not able to structure the problem very clearly. My manager, who was an MBA, who he helped me, brought a very structured clarity that how should we go about it, and how do we need to do the RCA, the root cause analysis, and putting your feet as in the customer's shoes, trying to have a 360 view of the problem and understanding that what exactly needs to be done, rather than simply pulling a lot of strings won't help you solve the problem. So my answer as to why do I want to do an MBA, it was very straightforward. Since a thought leader myself, as a person who would want to lead an industry, or as a person who would want to climb the corporate ladder, or want to make a business out of in future, I want that structured clarity. And when I worked as a product manager, I had expertise of couple of things, but I didn't have as an engineer. I have the technical expertise, but I don't have the managerial exposure to the things which are required to sustain a business or to make sure that your problem is being solved, especially when the scale of the problem is very huge. Working on Excel and typing some queries, that's fine. But when it comes to the business complexity and when it comes to solving a challenging problem, that's when you need a mindset where you can critically think and ensure that, okay, you are finding a way out of that solution. So my answer was that I would need that managerial exposure with the world-class pedagogy that we particularly have, which would help me ensure that I am able to inculcate the technological skills which I already have, plus the managerial skills which I will learn at MBA college, subjects like account, subjects like macroeconomics, subject like mini economics. These are the subjects which will help you ensure that why a particular problem is sustaining, and how would the external factors help you solve that particular problem, rather than uh, beating around the bush, which is internally and intrinsically there in that particular area. So I think that's very important. And your answer to why an MBA is absolutely subjective, and you can frame your answer as per why do you think that you would want to do an MBA. But it's always about upskilling yourself, getting that kind of network, making sure that down the line this is the kind of goals that you have, and an MBA would help you fill that particular void to get that goal. I hope that answers your question.